Welcome to students to the English class lesson 4 of the footprints. We will start with the lesson a question of trust. In this lesson we will see a very nice story of Horace Danby, and we will see also how one particular dacoit, or you can say a robber, he is outwitted by another. Outwitted means how he is able to you know get out more from that, or he bypasses or not able to make uh, the take the benefit of this robbery, and he is able to forfeit his whatever amount or the booty he was going to get, because and this type of very inquisitive type of story it is. Once you get into it, you'll understand probably, and how the whole plot is done, we will see in this lesson, starting with what does Horace Danby like to collect. So he's having a, what do you call it, a type of hobby to collect things. You have hobbies to collect things. In this way, here also there is a hobby that Horace Danby, he has to do odd job in order to get satisfy this type of collection which is having. And why does he steal every year? So stealing, robbery, and these things he has to do, in order to get the collection of what we will see. So that is a very interesting story related to this main protagonist, that is the Horace Danby. We'll start the lesson line to line. Everyone thought that Horace Danby was a good, honest citizen, because he was not caught by the police. He was in the bad books of the police, and therefore he was about 50 years old and unmarried. 50 years old and unmarried, and lived with a housekeeper who worried about his health. So he was not very good of health. What was the problem with his health? Let's see. In fact, he was unusually very well and happy, except for attacks of hay fever in summer. In summer, he had the hay that goes into your breathing process, and because of that, you are feeling a sense of what do you call it, uneasiness. You sneeze out of that infection, or that what you call allergy rather than infection. This allergy you have of certain things, and then you sneeze and make noise. And for a stealer, you imagine that it's a very dangerous thing. If you sneeze at you have to be very quiet, and we should be have behave in a stealthy way to get into the house, or do stealing. So that if we have a problem of this hay fever, that was a drawback for him. He made locks, and he was successful enough at his business to have two helpers. Locks he used to make, lock, tale. He made locks, and for that he used to keep two helpers also. Yes, Horace Danby was a good and respectable, but a completely honest. So he was honest, what he was doing with this money. You'll see, and you'll feel that he was doing this unjust work, not for out of enjoyment of inferior nature. He was getting enjoyment or satisfying his reading skills, that we'll see, in order to reading habits, and that he's having. That is the real thing that is being the problem for his stealing. He has to, otherwise he cannot satisfy his collection. So 15 years ago, Horace had served his first and the only sentence in a library, prison library. The prison library, in prisons also the facilities of this type of given. So he used to he used to be a librarian in that prison, and for that was 15 years ago, and he had to do this in the jail, because he was caught in the act of stealing maybe, and therefore the law punished him. He loved rare, expensive books. Now you see in the whatever this type of job that that you are given in the uh, prison is also what type of, it is a type of a job that you are interested in or you can do in a better way. So he was given this librarian job in the prison, and the reason was he loved rare, expensive books. See, books are also cheap and expensive. You see, you must have seen very expensive books also, costly. That type of book. So he robbed a safe every year. For this expensive books, he didn't have earn anything. Therefore, he used to do robbery. He robbed a safe and stole enough to last for 12 months. Once he dropped, then the 12 months he used to collect expensive books and read for himself. Each year he planned carefully just to what he would do. Stole enough and secretly bought the books he loved it through his agent. Now, walking in the bright sunny sunshine, he felt sure that this year's robbery was going to be as successful as all the others. So, whatever other successful stories of robbery had happened with him earlier, the same thing will happen at this Shotover Grange, the place which is going to do the robbery now. Looking at its rooms, electric wiring, its paths, its garden, this afternoon, the two servants who remained in the Grange while the family was in London had gone to the movies. Horace saw them go and he felt happy in spite of a little tickle in a hay fever in his nose. Tickle means, in the nose he gets irritation and then he has to sneeze out of, compulsion, otherwise he will feel irritated. That type of feeling he's having. So all this, situation where the people of this house have gone to the movies. Horace saw them go and little tickle in the nose that is having. He came out from behind the garden wall. His tools carefully packed in the bag of his pack. The bag of his back means he's having the backpack, and that in that he has kept all the tools which he will need to open the lock and the key and the other lock things in the whatever the treasury box and whatever keys are necessary. He can use it, that type of uh, tools he kept in the bag so that he could carry on his robbery or the stealing in a very good way without any problem. That all her apparatus and tools are required for these job, that is of stealing and robbing, was very well done by him. There were about 15,000 pounds worth of jewels. 15,000 pounds. So this is a big amount in those days. In the Grange safe. सेफ मीन्स तिजोरी. तिजोरी जो होती है ना, उसमें वो सेफ में 15,000 पाउंड्स के जो ज्वेल्स पड़े थे. He sold if he sold them one by one, he expected to get at least 5,000, enough to make him happy for another year. Now the robber is that he cannot ask for bargain, or he cannot bargain, so he'll just sell with a lesser price also than this 15,000 pounds. He can, if he sold all that for 5,000 also by giving one jewel to the jewelry and sold it, then also there were three very interesting books coming up for the sale in the autumn, and now he would get the money he wanted to buy them. So this money which he needs, he will get it very easily from this robbery. He expected that. He had seen the housekeeper hang the key to the kitchen door on a hook outside. So the robbers meticulously plan what things are happening in the house, where the keys are, where the safe is, how can I reach there, what are the peripheral things which are around that can create problem for him, how to get the solution of it. All these is very nicely planned by the robber. So in this way, he is here Horace Denby, who is the person who is going to the hero of our story. He put on the pair of gloves, took out the key, and opened the door. He was always careful not to leave any fingerprints. So today we have sophisticated ways of CCTV cameras and other ways to get the culprit. But in those days it was not the CCTV camera, and only telephone, wired telephone was there, and the fingerprints were crucial for the police to catch the culprit, and that he took care that didn't get into the hands of the police by this mistake, and therefore he kept on always his gloves so that his fingerprints won't get onto that subject or object which is using, or he doesn't get imprinted on the thing that is catching. The small dog was lying in the kitchen. It stirred, made a noise, and moved its tail in the friendly way. You see, in such a big house, a dog must be there, to protect the house. And all right, so here, how you know Horace is able to control this dog also. Otherwise, the dog doesn't allow a stranger to come in. But as a robber, he has to have the art also to control these type of dogs to stop barking and creating alertness or harm him. So how he does? All right, Cherry, Horace said to as he passed, all you had to do is to keep dogs quiet, was to call them by the right names. So see, as I told you, very small things, meticulous planning has to be done when a particular house is to be robbed, and therefore here you can see that Horace has the knowledge of this name that the dog has, and therefore he also is a keen reader. So he knows various psychological and things, and therefore he knows that if you call a dog by its name, then he will feel friendly and he will not create problem to you, and he will start loving it. And therefore the same thing happens where Sherry was the name of the dog, and when he calls his name by his name, that dog thinks that he is a familiar person of the households, and therefore he starts loving him rather than barking to an unknown person like this Danby. The safe was in the drawing room behind the rather poor painting. Horace wondered for a moment where he should collect pictures instead of books. But they took up too much room in small house. Books were better. So seeing the picture, he feels that I should purchase pictures like this also. He has, see, from this we can make out his aesthetic values he has with him in his self, and therefore he feels if whenever he sees good pictures or good books, he likes to read it, he likes to see and observe this type of good pictures also. Therefore he for a moment thinks that I should also purchase this type of pictures, but it will take more space to put a picture and observe it or keep it as a beautifying thing in your house. Then it needs space, and he didn't have a very good big house and a room. And instead of books, books take lesser space, and you can read it and enjoy and keep it at a small place. And all that painter has given in the picture, more than that I can read in the books with small space occupied by it. But they took up so much room. See, room doesn't mean, room has two meanings. A room that you occupy, that you sit in the four walls of your house, it's a room. But here room is the space that is allowed. In a small house, books were better. So he thought that in my house is small, and then the books will be better rather than this painting. There was a great bowl of flowers on the table. The Horace felt that his nose tickled. Flowers and this type of things, irritates the nose of Danby, and therefore the tickling of this happens in his nose. He gave up a little sneeze and then put down his bag. Sneeze means the nose, you sneeze. That he had to, and he had to control it and then put his bag down. He carefully arranged his tools and had 4 hours before the servants returned. The servants were not in the house, and the other households were not there. So now it was a good time for him to nicely arrange the tools which he will need to open the safe and do the robbery. The safe was not going to be hard to open. After all, he had lived with locks and safes for all his life. So, throughout his life he had used a lot of this type of tricks, used the tricks to open the locks and the safes so many times in his life that he felt that this safe will not take more time for him to open. The burglar alarm was poorly built. He went into the hall to cut its wire. Burglar alarm should be hidden or not known with the wiring, but yeah, it was poorly. Yeah, the situation is that it's poorly done, and therefore he cuts it, the wire which the burglar alarm from the electricity, so it will not start alarming, or using cutting technique of that wire, he will not be uh, in a safe position to not to get the people alerted on the house. He came back and sneezed loudly at the smell of the flowers came to him again. The smell of the flowers also gives him that irritation in the nose, and he gives a big sneeze. How foolish people are when they have valuable things, Horace thought. A magazine article had described his house, giving a plan of all the rooms and a picture of his room. The writer had even mentioned that the painting had a safe. Now, this paragraph is very crucial. The clue that the writer gets, he makes a foolishness about. He talks about the foolishness about the people. That they give. See, my house is so nice. Here, there's a room. There, here, that. The whole position is, giving the position and the facilities and the other speciality of the house is giving the magazine with pictures. So people like Danby, who wants to do the robbery, can study this house very nicely and eventually get into the position to rob it. So he thinks that they are foolish people, and everything over the safe and that was given or told in the this particular magazine. Therefore, he had a good idea of where the safe is, and he could easily do the robbery. But Horace found that the flowers were hindering him in his work. He buried his face in his handkerchief. So he takes his handkerchief and puts it on his nose so that the particles of that flowers and other things that are nearby won't get into his nose and irritate and tickle. That might create a sneezing. So he covers his mouth. Then he heard a voice say from the doorway, "What is it? A cold or a hay fever?" So a voice, you have a hay fever or you have a cold. You have a cold means सर्दी हो गई, या फिर you have irritation of hay fever, allergy of it. Before he could think, Horace said hay fever and found himself sneezing again. So he again sneezes and tells that yes, it's a hay fever. The voice went on. You can cure it with a special treatment. If you find you just what plant gives you the disease. So here, this type of allergy, if you have now, then allergies can be corrected, and you can feel safe of it by not getting that thing near you. And here the voice, once the voice will come to know, and that voice tells that yes, if you have a list of things that irritates you your nose and creates this allergy and sneezing, then you have to consult a doctor, or stay away from the things which are creating this problem. If you are serious about your work, I heard you from the top at the house just now. Here, this voice, who is that? We'll come to know now. Who is the real culprit in the story? Who is speaking the Horace Danby? It was a quiet, kindly voice, but one with firmness in it. A woman was standing in the doorway. So the woman, you can see over here, down in the pic, that the woman is there, quite pretty, and was dressed in red. She walked to the fireplace and straightened the ornaments there, as if it was her house. She's behaving like that, and from the outlook, you can make it out that she looks as if this is all of the house. Down, Sherry, she said. Anyone would think I'd been away for a month. She smiled at Horace, but went on. However, I came back just in time, though I didn't expect to meet a burglar. Though, yeah, she clarifies that everyone knew that I was out, and for a month she was out. Everyone knew that, and I came back just in time. Though the time when I come in, I didn't expect that in my house there will be a robber. I will get uh, to know that is a this robber. Though Horace had some hope because she seemed to be amused at meeting him and might avoid trouble if he treated her the right way. He replied, I didn't expect to meet one of the family. So in that context, the lady tells that I didn't expect a robber. He says that I didn't expect a family member then. How come? Horace said, hope, some hope, because she seemed to be amused at meeting him. Yeah, the if she's the owner of the house, then her behavior, no, is very typical. He might avoid trouble if he treated her the right way. He replied, I didn't expect to meet one of the family. She nodded. I see. What an inconvenience it is for you to meet me. What are you going to do? You see, I'm the owner of the house and you are caught red handed in front of me as a robber. What is your plan? What you will do now? Tell. Horace said, my first thought was to run. Of course, you could do that, but I would telephone the police and tell all about you. You'd get you at once. So they would get you at once, and if I call the police, then where you will go? Horace said, I would, of course, cut the telephone wires and first and then. He hesitated, a smile on his face. I would make sure that you could do nothing for some time. A few hours would be enough. Horace is cool now. That what you can do, tell me. I will do my work and you can't do anything. She looked at him seriously. You had hurt me. Horace paused and then said, I think I was trying to frighten you when I said that. I'm not hurting you, but I'm trying to frighten you. You didn't frighten me, Horace suggested. I thought it would be nice if you would forget you ever saw me. Let me go. The voice was suddenly sharp. The lady said, why should I? You are going to rob me. If I let you go, you'll only rob someone else. Society must protect it from a man like you. So yeah, that's very nicely the lady is interacting with the robber Denby, and here you can definitely make it out that so nicely this lady as is acting as if she is a very good woman, and she's asking that society needs to be protected. You people can I not allow you to run. When Horace says that I want to run them. Horace smiled. I am not a man who threatens society. I steal only from those who have a lot of money. I steal for a very good reason and I hate the thought of prison. So Horace, very nicely speaks and clarifies his position. He says that I don't steal, I'm not a threat to the society. I only, have loot or, rob the money from people who are, we can say, very rich and a lot of money they have. And the good reason also I have, and I don't, and I hate going to prison. If I go to prison, then my whole, motto of getting this robbery and getting good books, that is ruined, and therefore I don't want to go to prison. She laughed and begged, thinking that he had persuaded her. Look, I have no right to ask you for anything, but I'm desperate. Let me go, and I promise never to do this kind of thing again. I really mean it. See, let me go, he says. See, and he tells that, pursues her. If you let me go, I'll never do this type of thing, and, this kind of thing again. I really mean it. If you think that really it's bad for society to have people like me, and I assure you that I'll not do that next time, he promises. She was silent, watching him closely. Then she then said, "You are really afraid of going to prison, aren't you?" She came over to him, shaking her head. "I have always liked the wrong kind of people." She picked up a silver box from the table and took a cigarette from it. Horace, eager to please her and seeing that she might help him, took off his gloves and gave her his cigarette lighter. "You'll let me go," he said. He held the lighter towards her. "Yes, but only if you'll do something for me. Anything you say." "Before we left for London, I promised my husband to take my jewels to our bank, but I left them here in the safe. I want to wear them in the party tonight, and so I came down to get them. But what a here the lady is making a nice plot. She says that my husband is not here, and I want the jewels to wear in the party tonight, and therefore she wants these jewels. But you have forgotten the numbers to open the safe, haven't you? So with numbers you can open the code, the safe." "Yes," replied the young lady. "Just leave it to me and you will have them within an hour. But I'll have to break your safe. If I break, I'll have to break the safe, otherwise, I won't be able to open. I don't worry about it. My husband won't be there for a month, and I'll have the safe mended by the time. By the time my husband comes, I'll mend it, and therefore my husband will not have any objection to that." And within an hour, Horace had opened the safe, given her the jewels, and gone happily away. For 2 days he kept his promise to the kind lady. On the morning of the third day, however, he thought of the books he wanted, and he knew he would have to look for another safe. But he never got the chance to begin his plan. So now the money he could not get from that safe, and therefore he was planning that, one, two, third day, though I cannot, wait without that book, so I have to do planning for another robbery. By noon, a policeman, but before he could begin this plan, the policeman had arrested him for the jewel robbery at the Shotover Grange. His fingers had to open the safe without the gloves. Remember, in earlier part we had seen that when the lady wants a cigarette, and therefore he opens a casket, and with his gloves off, and then that catching of the casket, the fingerprints get embedded on that, and therefore they all over the room, and no one believed him where he said that the wife of the owner of the house had asked him to open the safe for her. So yeah, the lady was very actually outwitted him, and that why you can say that Horace Danby really feels that I will tell the police that I opened this safe for the housewife, and that she was not the housewife. The police didn't believe it, and because this lady was not the owner of the house. She was another robber in that guise of a beautiful lady, and therefore the lady had outwitted him and said that the story was nonsense. The police definitely accept what he had said. Why? Because the story that was made by this, which might be from his point of view a real story, but actually it was not, and therefore police, what he did, the police they arrested him. Horace is now the assistant librarian in the prison. He often thinks of the charming, clever young lady who was the same profession as he was. Here, this clarifies that the same profession in which I am, that's of robbery and stealing, the same profession is of this lady also, and she tricked me. he gets very angry when anyone talks about honor among thieves. So honor among thieves, this is quoted words. Why? Honor among thieves, thieves should not be honored. Honoring, how he did, he helped the lady, So helping should not be done. If robbers are there, one should, understand that robber instantly, and that he is a robber, or get the clue or intuition to know whether he is or not, and then you should not help. Otherwise, many stories in the history are there, wherein, you help a robber and that robber, you know, counterattacks or you, or and then you are in a loss, or you have to pay a very big price for it. Now, this Victor Canning is the writer of this, and therefore you have to remember the story's writer and quote it in the answers you will be writing in the test. And therefore, we herewith complete the story of this lesson. You will have to write the question answers, think about it, and talk about it in your fair book. See you in the next class.